Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And today we are going deep with an amazing young man named Jordan Hart. Jordan is a performer, a singer, a songwriter, and I'm going to tell you right away that this goes deep really quick because this is a young man who has such a depth to him. I've experienced some of his performances that I even hesitate to call a performance. It's more of an experience. And what I love in this conversation is we delve into what's behind all of that and what's going on for him as this experience happens for him on a stage that also is for everyone else who might be watching or in attendance. This is a really cool conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it and be a part of it. Friends, let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. Always glad to have you part of this conversation. I think, as I said in the intro, you are going to absolutely love where we're going today. We're going to get to some pretty deep and amazing places because this is a pretty deep and amazing guy. This is Jordan Hart, and I consider myself so blessed to know Jordan through our daughter, Leah, and man, just grateful for the times we've had, Jordan. And as I was saying earlier, it just feels like there's so much more to come as we get to share our life together a little bit. Yeah.
Likewise, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Well, why don't we jump into what seems like a natural question? How did you even get into all this music stuff anyway? Yeah.
Sure.
Where'd that come from?
So I come from a deep lineage of music.
Really?
So when I was growing up, I was quite close to my mother's side of my family. And every single person on my mother's side, so she has 5 siblings, I think, or she's one of 5 siblings. And every single one of them is remarkably talented at music. It's like, it's not normal how good they are. And so when I was growing up in that, I just thought that was how people communicated.
Really?
I noticed that music was a more efficient way of communicating in a lot of ways than English was even, and saw the way that my mom and her siblings would reach these new levels of depth in their relationship by singing 5-part harmony around a campfire, around with songs like The Rose and some classic old songs like that. And, it was impossible for music not to have been a part of my life. And then it was only until like way later on in my life that I ever considered it as a career.
Wow.
But
amazing.
Yeah.
So has any of your family done or been doing what you're doing as far as making it their career and livelihood?
Yeah. I should actually also, I meant to go to the place that I recently discovered that on my dad's side of the family, it's the exact same way. We're like, his dad and all of his siblings were also extremely musical. So it's like deeply in my blood. But my uncle was a part of a really famous Canadian country band called Emerson Drive.
Yeah.
And so he helped write some of the songs, was a singer and a piano player in that band. My grandpa was an actor by profession, at least in part, for some of his life. I got to see him in a couple of amazing productions. My mom is a music teacher. My aunt is a choir director. I've got another aunt who's a singer. Like my brother is an amazing singer-songwriter. My sister is an amazing singer-songwriter. I'm sure I'm forgetting people. It's everybody.
But it clearly is on both sides. So they must be. It might be hard for you to answer this question. But they must be so proud of you, big guy. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. It was funny when I first started down this journey. My uncle was the one that I really wanted to talk to about it because he was the person that I had seen like in front of real live audiences, had listened to his music nonstop on his records and stuff like that. Yeah. And he was the first person that I wanted to talk to about this journey that I had decided to go on. And he gave me the most fierce push against it out of everybody that I've ever talked to about it.
As soon as I asked the question or assumed that would be the case, that could be they know how hard it can be.
Yes.
And okay, so what was his pushback? What was his, are you sure you want to do this? Because this, and this. Yeah.
Exactly. I think he just wanted me to know that it was difficult.
Yeah.
I don't intimately know, to be honest, the ways that it was specifically difficult for him, but I know that it was like something he wanted to let me know from the beginning, that this isn't an easy road. And I do know from later on our conversations that the industry ruined a lot of, he's not, music is still a part of his life, but it ruined his desire to be in the industry just because of the way that the industry processed music, especially during his time. It has changed a lot, but from his experience, he just wanted me to, I think, still experience music as a special thing.
Okay.
And he didn't want the industry to take away from my life and my own relationship with music, I think.
So what are some of the challenges that you've faced, that you've experienced, that, like you said, different from his, because the world is so different, how music is produced is so different these days.
Oh, man.
But yeah, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced, or, you know, have you ever said, oh, maybe he was right?
Interesting. You know what? It's that question feels endless to me. It's been such a big part of my life for I think almost over half of my life now. And so I cut my personality on the shaping stone of the music industry, a big part of my personality on it. And it's been a part of like the greatest growths, the greatest triumphs, and the greatest like losses of my life. I do think that the latter part of the question is a little easier to answer, that I feel like it's changed. I think right from the beginning, my uncle was a part of a band, and I think that I know that band didn't write most of their songs. I think they wrote like some of them, but I think a lot of their bigger songs that they were really pushing came from other writers. With my music, I write and actually produce all of it. And so I feel very, very close to it. I don't know if my uncle would have had the same relationship with the art that he was marketing. But I could imagine if I didn't believe in my art, or if I didn't feel this connected to it, there have been many hills I would have died on by now. There were things that I've had to do that I would not have gotten through unless I felt this called to share what I'm sharing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally make sure. And that's one of the many attributes that I love about you, this authenticity, this integrity. It's like you've been given a platform to share a message that you really believe in, and that's really important. So let's go there. Like let's talk a bit about the opportunity that you've been given, that you've chosen, that you've stepped into, where you get to write and create your own music. What goes into that? How much of Jordan goes into that? What part of Jordan goes in? Like how does that happen? And what is the message that you hope that goes out into the world, which it does, especially now? Yeah, with the words, the music, what you're putting out there.
I think that 100% of me goes into it. It's interesting. I think even in like this last month or two is the first time that there are parts of me that I'm claiming outside of my career in a very obvious way. But other than that, and that's a very nuanced thing. Other than that, like 100% of me goes into everything that I do. And it's almost doubly true for this. And the message that I've come to explore more intentionally as I've been able to spend more time with what it means to be an artist and really find my identity in that is a deep vulnerability couched in a very comfortable environment. So I want people to feel safe and hopeful in the process of going to places they've almost never, like to depths and levels of exposure that they don't traditionally feel comfortable in, and to be able to do that together with people that they intimately know and together with strangers that they've just met that day in my concert experiences. So I really want my music to inspire a comfortability with vulnerability and a deep sense of like the power of God, the light of the sun level hope. It's just like this propelling humanity forward type of hope, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. I'm like, yes. I'm in. I love it. I love it. So what does that look like? Like what, maybe even taking us into a song that and where that has come from and how you've tried to do that, getting people to a place where they can be comfortably vulnerable, enter into the reality of whatever that might be, but with a sense of hope and light and God bringing us through to a new place. So this part, the latter part, is just kind of coming now. The way it started, I started as a busker. So I really cut my teeth on the streets in the middle of like street corners. The first place I busked was in the airport in Edmonton, where I was raised. No way.
And had an experience right from then up until 2 years ago, where most of my performances, like I'd say 90% of them were on street corners for people that were unsuspecting audiences. And because of the nature of those performances, I got to test this beautiful piece of justice in music, that the thing that was resonating the most truly with me at the time that I was performing it was inevitably the thing that would resonate with the audience the most. And it didn't matter. There were many years where I would chase, what is this thing that will get me this audience, that will help me to connect with people, which is what I've always loved most about music. So I would try to go out there and I'd perform top 40 songs. I would perform old classics. I would perform fast songs. I would perform slow songs. And there was no consistency. Some days the fast songs, the top 40 hits, were what drew the biggest audience. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then other days I would go out there, I would learn later that those were the days that my heart just wasn't in it. Maybe a day where I was feeling really sad and down, and I'd still be trying to force this positive energy out of my performance. And lo and behold, it was very clear in the result. It was not resonating. And it took quite a few years, but eventually I realized that if I just went out and allowed myself to drop into where I was authentically in that moment and connected that through my vocal performance, it would often be where I would find where that was over a couple of songs, and I would close my eyes, dive into that song that I found, open my eyes, and there'd be 100 people around me. And it happened almost every time.
This is when you're busking. Like, wow.
Yeah, in the middle of the street, people would just have like being drawn. I think, the beauty of busking also is that if I was in a more contemplative state, the people that were in a mood to party would be able to just walk by. But that people that were in that same contemplative state saw it and recognized it deeply in a way that maybe they didn't even fully understand. And I do believe we were connected in those moments and continue to be connected in those moments in ways that nobody understands. Like it's a very, very deep level that when an artist is resonating that authentically, that it does create this spiral.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I love that it's beyond style, beyond pace,
me too.
fast. Like that's really kind of cool, because people hopefully are listening to this and they can translate it to whatever their life is. But we always try to compare ourselves to somebody else, and you can be you, and that's when you're at your best. And I've been at some, I call, it's an experience. I was saying to you before, it's not for me, it's more than just a performance, because I just feel like I'm experiencing something with you. So I've experienced what you were talking about, not as on the busking thing. That would have been really cool. I think I would have been drawn in for sure, but I was there, and you were like my experience of it was you were taking us to a place, and we went somewhere together. And it really, like I said, my wife could say that was a spiritual experience for me. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that experienced that. And so I'm really curious, when you are preparing for something like that, when you're preparing to perform or, play your music, which becomes our music, actually, when we share an experience like that.
Absolutely.
What part of the planning of that is, okay, on this song, when I get to this part, I'm going to do this and go, ooh. And what part is in the moment as it's happening, I'm getting a sense of, in the Christian world, we call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, but just you're getting a sense of being moved to a place that you just need to go. And then they said, like you said, you open up your eyes and everybody's there with you. Yeah. So I'm just curious on how much of that is preparation and pre-thinking and planning and preparing, and not that either is bad. I'm just curious. And one is it's happening in the moment. Like how does that work?
There has to be. I think that I am the type of person that would unintentionally belittle and be almost completely unaware of the preparation part.
Okay.
I think that. There doesn't, in the mathematics of music, that Holy Spirit doesn't feel present, or whatever people want to call that genuine vibration. Is the mathematics of music, or like the mathematics of a performance, have never appealed to me, because it doesn't feel like it's intrinsic. It's like, it's in the same way that the human body is sometimes described as like a house of the soul. It feels like the mathematics of music are like the house of the soul of music. And so, I'm like that in many areas of my life where the preparation isn't intentional to the point where I actually almost never practice
Okay.
intentionally. I'm now realizing the benefits of some
Mm.
structure, and
Okay.
I'm implementing some of that, more and more of that in my performance. It's a very new endeavor though.
It's interesting, yeah.
And I think that the spiritual nature of my performances
Okay.
actually comes from the things that make me want to reject structure.
Mm.
It's leaving the moment as open as possible, so that the moment that is unpredictable and ever changing, to be able to wrap a performance around that moment, as opposed to have a structured performance that the moment has to then fit into.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of improvisation. I think that the most important pieces of preparation came from the years of study as a busker, where I was peeling layers of myself further and further away, so that there was less and less of my identity or my, I guess my pre-structured personality that was getting in the way of me communicating these ideas as intrinsically and viscerally as possible. And I think the more ego that's involved in that communication, the more limited it is, and the less people that can translate it. So that's my work, is to strip away my ego and my performances.
And be open.
Exactly.
Be open to that moment, to what's happening, to the people that are there, to what you are experiencing. I mean, going back to what you said earlier, it starts with you. And if you can experience that, then others hopefully are coming along to that place with you, kind of thing. What's it like for you? Because like I said, I've been there. It's a very moving experience. And I think if, there may be some people who aren't there, like they're there, but not there, but if you're there, like you would have experienced something really powerful. How is that for you, leading that? How is that for you when it's over? Are you tired after an experience because you're giving a lot of yourself in that moment? My experience has been that the balance of being prepared and getting prepared for something takes energy, but it does take actually even more energy to be open and vulnerable in the moment in what's happening. And I think, there's a balance of both that can be really important from my perspective. But the energy, I'm talking about energy at this point now, like the energy that can take to be that open, to experience that, to take people there, to lead people there. We're going on a journey with you. You're taking us to a pretty deep and amazing, beautiful, vulnerable place. Yeah. What's that like for you? Are you tired after? Are you excited after? Are you energized? Are you exhausted for 3 days? What's it like? Because you're giving so much of yourself. I feel. And correct me, because I'm just kind of giving my non-musical interpretation of what I've experienced.
Cool.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but
it's all good.
Yeah.
I think there are 2 parts to the way that I would like to answer the question. The first one is that it doesn't feel so much like a leading as much as a welcoming energetically.
Nice.
And I don't think that it actually takes energetically as much as it actually gives. I'm quite introverted, and usually I'm pumped with energy at the end of my concerts, especially social energy, in a way that I never experience at any other time in my life. That said, I've put so much stake on what I'm doing. I think it's probably unhealthy, but it's also just a part of who I am, that I tend to do that with every given moment and everything that I do in my life, especially once I've decided I'm going to commit to something and I've articulated that to myself. And then there's a whole other exponential level of that when I've decided it and I've articulated it to people I respect, that this is what I'm doing. I feel that in my marriage. I feel that in doing this podcast with you. And I really, really feel it in I'm going to be a performing singer-songwriter. And because of the amount of pressure I put, or how high that stake is for me, I'm almost ashamed to admit that over the last 5 years of my life, 99.9% of my performances, at the end of them, I've gotten off the stage and have been filled with the most self-hatred that I feel in my life. I just cracked a really cool code. Actually, I'm working with an amazing performance coach, or I guess you could call them like a coach and a mentor of mine, who's actually used to be my drama teacher in high school. And he actually was one of the officiants at the wedding from Emily and I. And he helped me with this. I was going into the performance that I think you saw me at most recently. And I had mentioned this to him that it's been so long since I just felt okay after a performance, and I really just want to feel okay after this one.
Wow. Yeah.
And after hearing my process, he came away with what he had heard and recommended that a lot of the way I was processing things was about the ways that I could make this experience go wrong and the ways that I could make this experience go right. And he's like, instead, what if the first thing you do is completely drop your understanding of who you are, your awareness of who you are. And the first thing I want you to do is like go up on stage and notice the eyes of every single person in the audience. And what if your awareness is completely on them the whole time? And I got to tell you, Jamie, I'm still exploring the profundity and like the details of what that did for me.
Yeah.
But I have never been on a higher high. I mean, maybe my wedding day was like a high I could compare to getting off of the stage after that concert. I felt so elated. And
which is completely different from the way that you've experienced over the last several years. Okay. So can we drill down on that a little bit? Like what do you, and you know, you're moving into this as new, so you're still discovering, but what's your sense of what's happening as you focus your attention from I to us or them?
Yeah. I think, so there's a huge relinquishing of control, which is beautiful because it allows me, it's a double-edged sword in this beautiful way where it allows me not to hold the burden of anything that falls short. It's a moment that we didn't arrive at together as opposed to a moment that I didn't take you to, right? And also it allows me to stay level-headed in the moments that go really well. Because maybe in the past I've been guilty of when I hit a run perfectly or hit this beautiful musical moment, you know, there have been unhealthy reactions that have come out of me from that, especially if I'll like hit a huge musical moment and the audience won't respond exactly how I imagined them to or wanted them to. And I'll be like, you know, like have this sense of screw you, that was amazing. or like this sense of like, wow, I'm so good. And then I'll get trapped in that moment that's now the past. And the moment keeps rolling and I'm like, but I did something amazing over there.
Yeah.
So I think that this relinquishing of control, this focus on the entire room, that the audience is participating, that the musicians that are on stage with me are participating in, it allows me to stay even further in that moment and be a more efficient conduit of the energy of the moment.
Oh man, that is huge.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
And it actually makes sense, when you think about it. Like because like how could, let's say there's a room of 50 people, 100 people, 500 people, 10,000 people. How could it possibly be on your shoulders for them to, you know, they've come from, maybe their loved one passed away yesterday. Maybe they're, you know, there's no way you can control all of them or how they're coming. It just makes so much sense.
100%.
We do these Peloton workouts and I love it. They're great instructors and it's interesting because they've said a few things as they start off that made me think, think of it as you were talking, you know, they'll say, hey, I make recommendations, you make decisions. Like
love it.
This workout will be as good as you choose to make it, right? Because it's true, like I can give you the exercises, you can watch me do them, but if you don't actually do them, if you don't actually enter in, if you're not going to experience what you could, but that's up to you. Like there's this freedom that comes with it. Like I'm setting the stage, I'm going to do but this is it's freeing is really, oh my gosh. Well,
are these, sorry if I have to interrupt, but are these things that you experience that resonate in your own experience of like leading an audience and what you do?
Absolutely. So absolutely. Cool. No. And
do you like actively process them and have you grown in ways that you've been able to articulate, I suppose?
Yeah.
That's so cool. That makes sense because I've only seen you a couple of times, but it seems so present. Rehearsed, but also not controlled.
Yeah, for sure. I try to, absolutely. Cool. Try to balance that for sure. Amazing. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's times where I've been too far on both sides. That when you just, even for the, like I was too prepared and just went too, you know, and didn't leave enough room for, you know, and then there's been somewhere it's the opposite and that hasn't gone well either. So there's a continuous balance, but then that would lead to the beating of oneself up as soon as one is done. And yes, absolutely. Still, I suspect, as long as I'm in this human skin, which I anticipate I will be for the rest of my life, that I'll always wrestle with that. But definitely, trying to keep growing and living into basically what you've described, like releasing myself from the need to control what people experience and really, really prayerfully do what I believe is my job for that day, and let the chips fall where they may, if you
Cool.
will. And then be more and more okay these days with some responding and some not. And it almost is unrealistic to think that every single person in every single room, every single time, which clearly would be my desire, if I'm being honest,
Same.
is going to respond the way that you would want them to, that you would hope them to. So just, giving up that kind of control, that freedom of coming with that, doing what you've been called to do to the best of your abilities, but also just releasing that to people to take from it what they can, what they will, what God enables them to. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. That's, Hey, I'm supposed to ask questions. What are you doing? No, I'm kidding. No, I'm joking. It's a conversation.
Totally,
This is great. I love
yeah,
this. I love this. So, there are a couple of things I'd just love to still touch on if we could.
Absolutely.
Maybe this one comes out of this because for me, it is dealing with pride and ego and
Same.
removing me from it enough to get there.
Yeah.
So you and I were talking earlier, you've got, I don't even know what the numbers are. You've got like a crazy number of people following you on social media. What is that like? What is the number? People are interested in what is the number?
I don't know.
You're not a numbers guy to me, so I think so. I feel really safe with this question as far as how do you deal with that? Like how do you deal with that? I guess I'll just leave it at that. Yeah,
it's interesting. I've been processing this a lot because there are like really dark times in this career, because it is something that is coming, it's a lot closer to me than I feel like many different careers have the opportunity to be, because I'm not working for anybody else. It is my business, but even beyond my business, like my art is my heart. Like I don't really play a character on stage. I'm not that kind of artist. I'm really trying to express
your life,
vulnerably authenticity, right? And so it's tough to remove me from the art, if that's even possible at all. And if it is possible, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm always on the search for the best way to process that and the best way to allow me to continue to do what I feel called to do with my music. And so this is something that I've tried to use to help me feel better about myself when I feel like I haven't done enough, is to look at the numbers, look at the responses on social media, and try to take them in as something that makes me, as a milestone of my success. But for some reason, Jamie, I haven't figured out how to do it yet. I was talking to you like briefly earlier about directly after the service about the difference between being a recorded artist and a performance artist, and how when I'm performing, I can almost like it's so visceral. The audience truly is at least 50% of the experience that's happening in that room, and when that communication is happening, it's not just me anymore, and I can feel that two-way street. And the
flow of energy, the connection,
flow of energy, it's very cyclical.
Yeah.
Whereas it feels like as a recording artist, my giving of my art is a line. It never comes back, and even in the ways that it does come back or bend around as a circle, I haven't found a way to feel the close of that loop. So even if it's like I've gotten certain social media comments before that are along the lines of, "You've saved my life," along the lines of, "You've saved my relationship," explicit details of the ways that my music has really deeply impacted these people. And for some reason, my heart is close to them, and I don't intend it to be, but I can't find a way to actually receive that over social media. And similarly, like the numbers have never satiated me. They're really also tough to quantify because I'm not,
what does it mean?
And also I'm not to the point of success where like I'm being recognized on my street, on a street commonly.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Where I feel like that would be an in your face level of like, you are a celebrity at that point. Like I'm very far from anything like that. So there's a number on Spotify that, for example, says that almost 400,000 different people have listened to my music this month, which when I like really try to quantify that feels like it's huge, or like it feels like it should be like, wow, that's amazing. but for some reason my heart doesn't leap at that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like, I you know what, just yesterday I was on a walk with a really good friend of mine. I've hung out with him 3 times and I still feel like he's a really good friend of mine. Like he's like a soul brother.
Cool.
And he just told me, we kind of had actually a similar conversation about like, he was asking how that feels. And I was just mentioning that like, I don't think I'm, you know, that successful or that famous. And he told me that his mom is like one of my biggest fans. I've never met her. And apparently every time he hangs out with me, she like asks like, oh my God, you hung out with Jordan. What was that like? And he was like, I hope you're not offended. It's just like, I just tell her like, I was just hanging out with my friend. I'm like, of course I'm not offended. That's how I feel.
You want to touch my hand?
Like, come on. Like, what the heck? I don't know. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's,
you know what?
Yeah.
I think it does. And I think I from what I have seen in you, appreciate about you, it makes complete sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. No, really cool. And I just want to acknowledge that that's not a way that's unique. It's unique and it's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. I really want to hear about the song that you put together for Canada Day. You talked about hoping your music would have a message that would be very real, vulnerable, but also hopeful. And you put out a song on Canada Day that really named the reality of the history of our country around the lack of reconciliation with our Indigenous communities and some of the history that has happened. And my wife Katrina showed it to me, and I was so moved. I think the first thing I said, please play that again. And I said, please play it again. And I said, please play it again. I don't know how many times we watched it. And then I thought, the country, our whole country needs to see this. Anyway, thank you for putting that together. Tell us about it. Like, where did that come from? What were you hoping, or maybe like hope to still do with it? Because I really want to help have more people hear it. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thank you. It feels like a very nuanced thing to even presume to have any type of voice in this particular topic. And you know, I actually really didn't feel I didn't expect it to kind of be as successful as it was, or to have gained as much attention as it did. I don't know. I'm not saying I wouldn't have. I don't know if I would have released it if I did.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I would have. I think it just would have taken some time for me to like process what that meant.
I would have thought about it more. I didn't know it was going to. Yeah. Totally get it. Because it's pretty powerful. It's pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So like it's received almost 100% positive feedback.
Okay.
There have been 1 to 10,
Yeah.
I'd say, comments that mostly have come from people I've never met, don't know them at all. But like there was one, for example, there's a friend of mine that I've been close to. Admittedly, we haven't spoken in quite a long time, but at one point I was really, really close with him, and he's an amazing dancer. And just recently, like he's really expressing his Indigenous Canadian roots, which is really cool to see. And he had the feedback, which he gave me quite publicly, that it offended him that I used the word Canada in the song, for example, as opposed to the word Turtle Island. Like I've received that this song was, well, it is representative of the issue, and it does, perpetuate the conversation about it, which people appreciate. It's from the colonizer's perspective. Types of things like this, which have been difficult for me not to focus on. You know what I mean? And I think that it's interesting. It allowed me to also like very, very deeply reflect on what my intention was with sharing it, and realizing that my intention actually wasn't to have a voice that represented anybody that has been affected directly by this issue, because I and my ancestors were not. Instead, it was actually from the perspective of a child whose ancestors very well might have participated in the atrocities. And it was, I'm realizing now, actually delivered from that perspective quite intentionally, saying like, oh my God, like this is atrocious and I don't know how to live with this. This is how I'm feeling. And I think that I'm hoping, and I have received some feedback that is actually very specifically what has resonated with a lot of people. That
for
you know
sure,
what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
I'm not trying to hide that I'm Canadian, and I'm not trying to hide that I'm a proud Canadian. And I'm so grateful to have grown up in this incredible country. And acknowledging this and putting importance on it, and direct, like in the same breath as I'm a proud Canadian, holding a new standard, a high standard for ourselves in light of our history. Is kind of how I was trying to process
that is
this.
certainly how we received it. And again, I appreciate the positivity still. Like, I know, and I don't mean to disrespect any, like the damage that has been done is atrocity, as you say. Just it's pain. It's terrible. But we still live in a beautiful country that I'm grateful for, and that was Canada. You put it out there, and then there was like it was, and the tune, I felt, also took you to a very deep place, as well as the words, right? That experience that one would have. That's what I had, and my wife and I, Katrina. But then the hopefulness of let's build something better together, man. And anyway, I think interesting. To me, this circles back to what we were talking about earlier, and I love that it took you to a place of even greater depth on what was I trying to do with it. And cool that God blessed you with something that was so, that connected with people enough that it drew you back to, I better like circle back with myself. And why did I do this?
Totally.
And that might help people hear it in the way that it was always intended, whether it was named that way or not. You are living into your message, I would say, of being, uncomfortably vulnerable sometimes. When you put stuff out there, I don't want to pray for more of that to happen for you. But on the other hand, maybe you're doing what you've been called to do as it does, you know? And, okay. Good news, rapid fire. Let's finish with that, brother. What's the best thing going on in your home and your family?
My relationship with my wife is just lighting me up every day.
That's so good. That's so good. That's cool. That's cool. What's the best thing going on in your neighborhood and your community?
My community, the best thing that's going on is people are reaching a level. It's like kind of like, I don't know, maybe approaching our 30s. Like my friendship community, I'll say. We're reaching a level of a certain solidity in ourselves. We're starting to turn a corner on that, where a lot of our early 20s felt like we were exploring what it meant, what our values were, what it meant to us to live up to them. And it's really cool to watch like my whole community kind of like stand with our backs a little straighter and like just hold ourselves with a little bit of a deeper breath, a little bit of a more solid footing. And
that is awesome.
Like living in that world right now with my favorite people is just like, feels amazing.
It's a great place to be. It's pretty crazy. Great place to be. And last question, best thing from your observation going on in our world these days?
I think that it's little moments like this. I think that it's like, one-on-one, two-on-two, like just the intimate connections that are happening, even between people. I come from a family that has very, very different political values actually than my immediate family. And I'm being first-hand witness to the love that is still existing between these people, which is something that isn't really portrayed in social media and like in the media world, where we see like people over there, and people that are ready to go to war with each other. Whereas actually behind the veil of social media, I'm actually seeing these people that have like the depth of love for each other. And I think that's a really positive reality.
Absolutely. And that is a depth of love, to have maybe even different viewpoints on things, but still to respect and love each other, listen to each other, and be okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jordan, man, love you and Emily, and just grateful for you guys, and grateful for this conversation today. I can't wait for others to get to hear this and experience it as well.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, for sure. Let me pray just to close. Sure. Good. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Oh God, thank you for the sacred space that has happened here as we've gone to some pretty real places in this conversation. I love going to some places that maybe didn't even anticipate before we started, and trust that you were a part of all of that. Continue to bless Jordan. Give him courage to put music, a message that can be so very real and so very hopeful at the same time. That you would help him have the discipline, the resiliency, the hard work it takes to do that, but also to let go, to be released from the outcomes and just do what he is able to do and be more than content with that. And all of us, what an important message for us, whether we're a musician or not. We all live in a world where we can only do so much, and we want to do it well. But then we need to just let things go and trust that you're at work and all is and will be well. So thank you for that, and so much that we got to talk about today. We just appreciate this life that you have blessed us with, and all that we get to do as part of that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thanks, my man.
Thank you.
So good. Yeah. Friends, thank you for being a part of the Good News Podcast family, for being a part of this conversation today. God bless you and be with you, and look forward to being with you again real soon. Well, everyone, I told you that this guy, Jordan, man, what an amazing guy, that he is deep and amazing, and hopefully experienced that in the conversation. I know I did. We went to some places that I found really, I'm still thinking about them, actually. I loved how he redirected the question around, do you when you're taking people to a certain place within your music. He said, no, I'm not taking them. I'm not even leading them. I'm just welcoming them. I just love the different angle in on that as far as his thinking. And then, wow, to like really think about what his role is, to not have this pressure to control what people experience, but to do his thing to the very best of his abilities, with all the joy that God has blessed him with, all the gifts that God has blessed him with, and then let people experience it as they will, as they may. And I really love taking the pressure off and releasing the control of the outcome, because really, when you think about it, what's going to happen for people is in many ways, in large part, to them. What are they open to? How are they feeling? What's going on in their life? That was really cool. I hope that helps you. I'm not a musician, but that helped me in lots of kinds of things that I'm doing these days. I hope that depth of thought really helps you too in your life, whatever it is that you're up to these days. So hope you enjoyed. Friends, I gotta tell you, it's gonna already be out by the time you hear this, but Emily Schultz, Jordan's wife, and Jordan Hart have released a song for the Christmas season called Little Drummer Boy, but they've done it in a very new and fresh way. Follow either of them on Instagram or just Google, check them out. You're going to find on all the platforms you can find music. But friends, this may be a great blessing to you through this Christmas season. Don't forget to check it out. Thanks again for being a part of this conversation, being part of the Good News family. And we just love you so much, and always praying for you, hoping things are well. God bless you and be with you.